I'm freaking out, man.
You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all the men in power want? More power.
And now, broadcasting live on GMN from an undisclosed location in the Arizona desert. Italian by birth, American by choice. Songwriter, poet, freedom activist, Luca Zanna with Love, Guns, and Freedom.
All systems go.
Don't tread on us. We're not afraid. You work for us. We're not your
You're listening
slave.
to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on 1340 AM K-Talks and also on Guerrilla Media Network. And don't forget also on www.lovegunsfreedom.com. My name is Luca Zanna. Today is the show, probably one of the most important show I ever done. I know, many of you always say that. And guess what? I always mean it because I really believe every Sunday my goal here in this station, on this internet, everywhere I can, is try to bring information, facts, that they're not just made to entertain because I'm not good at that. And that's not my purpose. I'm trying to fulfill my oath. When I became an American citizen in 2005, I swore an oath to defend this republic. And I realized immediately, then, even before I was an American, I became a naturalized American. This republic, it is the last few hours, is completely under attack by globalist forces. And, I tried to get this opportunity that I had to try to share these facts. This is not just a bunch of conspiracy or ideas or opinions. I keep those for myself. I try to bring you facts with the first goal is to wake you up. Because this is no more the America your fathers or grandfathers grew up. We are not in Kansas anymore. This is really coming to a point that now it start to knock at your doors. And, there is a proverb, I don't know if it's a proverb, but I found out this expression. We are today the results of our past. And I'm telling you, in my America journeys, in my new experience, my new life in this country that I decided, I chose. I didn't come here by accident. I fought to be here. I left Italy because I wanted to become an American. And when I see America, I see people like the guest I'm bringing today. For me, it was the ideal type of Americans that pretty much created this country not that long ago, just a couple of, a couple 100 years ago. Now, my point is this one. Today, I will bring with you a guest that I've been trying to bring on the show a few times. He's very busy, and is somebody for me that also was on my top list. If I had to put 5 people that woke me up to this new reality called New World Order, global government, even before I became an American, well, the list is not that big, but one of these people that I really have the honor to have with me is here with me today, and his name is Mark Koernke. Mark from Michigan. Mark, are you there?
How are you doing, sir? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And as I was saying, I really mean it. I believe in destiny, and maybe I believe also not just destiny. There is a superior plan for all of us. Sometimes we don't see understanding immediately why, but one day around probably early 2000, after 2001 exactly, I stumbled on YouTube. Was one of the first YouTube, anyway, one video of yours. That's the bottom line. I remember that was the first video I used to be able to watch on the internet. And there was this American Peril. And I said, who is this crazy guy? Who is this guy? Black helicopters and New World Order. I even didn't know what was New World Order. But you started to put out some keywords that they really touched my brain, especially after I started to wake up to 9/11. There was a fraud, according to the facts that we pretty much all should know, acknowledge. But regardless, I started to dig into your work that you did in the 90s and before even before the internet was there. And I said, wow, I can not thank you enough to have been at least starting me up to explore and face this terrible reality that now we are facing as a world, but also especially as Americans. We are facing these international globalists destroying what is left of our freedoms and republic. So you're here with me, and I really appreciate you for your job, and to have, even by accident, I am pretty much the results of your labor. I want just to let you know that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I appreciate the compliment. Again, each person finds a different way to the same questions we all ask when we watch things or we've seen things develop and it doesn't make any sense. This is the first part of critical thinking and asking the right questions about things.
Exactly.
So
I would like, Mark, before we start, because there's so much I would like to touch with you. Many of my listeners, they may already know you, but I'm trying to reach mainstream people that normally they just watch Fox News or MSNBC or whatever. They're still in the Matrix. I would like to, first of all, start to let the people know you as a human being, as an American, briefly with your little bit of history, your background, and also you went through some tough times. I want you to know, as much as we can, give us a little bit of your introduction. Go ahead.
A thumbnail sketch of my life.
I
understand. Yeah, that's it. Well, let's start out with, first of all, nobody grows up knowing what we eventually, what we develop and learn in the way of a database. And the good thing is I have to give credit. My parents, my mom and dad, were both my mom was the oldest of 8 on her side of the family. My father was the oldest of 8 on his side of the family, and they both grew up during the Great Depression back in the 30s. In the process, of course, they experienced unique problems and all the hardships that usually you read about. And because of that, self-reliance, or the idea of knowing how to take care of yourself and also how to think for yourself. That's one thing that my dad focused on, is not telling me what I was seeing, but asking me what I was seeing. What do you see over there?
Wow.
I think that's the most important thing about how questions can be asked, because it gets the brain juices flowing. Well, eventually I decided, like everybody back during that glorious space age we used to have in America, when we used to have American engineering, I wanted to go into space. I really did. And I focused everything on that. I won a number of a NASA Science Award, Navy Science Award, several different little scholarships in the process back when I was going to school. And I got on that track, which got me in. It's funny because it got me to a unique venue of a group of people and unique different people. But somebody kind of approached me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about military intelligence?" So I kind of got recruited directly into U.S. I went to the Army, but I went in specifically as a 94B intelligence analyst. And it was a sidebar thing. Originally, I wanted to get in the military. I'll be quite honest, I was aiming towards space. So I could qualify, even with corrective lenses, as a navigator, flight navigator. That's what I was pointed towards while I was going into aerospace engineering. We all know what happened to how they shut down the system in the 70s. And, the same burp and economy that's happening now happened then, guys. Mm-hmm. Same routines, all the cookie cutter, everything to include the fuel, the economy, the pressure from outside, the pressure from inside. So I changed directions a little bit. And it was an interesting awakening, because as a school-trained 94B intel analyst, I had to go to Fort Huachuca, which we call Fort We Gotcha, down there just a little north of Nogales, Arizona. If you find Nogales,
yes,
and you go up the border a little bit, the U.S. Army Intelligence Center and Schools is U6, and I was stationed there and worked there as an intel analyst. Most people go into the intel analyst jobs in the military aren't necessarily recruited or trained for the mission. It's just a promotion for, it's a way to get a step up in promotion. You go into a slot and, okay, so it's an intel analyst slot. It's just a title. They don't even keep the job.
Mark, can I ask you something before you go ahead? How old you were
Go
at
ahead.
that time? Pretty much what was your age at the time?
Oh, I'm 57 now.
Yeah, but at the time when
yeah.
you were doing the analyst in the intelligence, how old you were?
I started out at the ripe old age of actually 19 going on 20.
Wow, so you were a young man. Okay.
I was actually, before that, I'd worked with Special Forces. And it's not, everybody always says they work with Special Forces. I volunteered, got into certain missions and such, and because I was in the perfect window right at the end of Vietnam. 1975 to 1977, I volunteered and did pretty much everything and anything you could imagine I wanted to. In fact, for many of you probably saw me. This is something I've never talked about much on the air. Nancy knows, because we've got the paperwork upstairs.
Okay.
I was the poster child for some of the recruiting posters by accident, simply because I was hanging on the end of a rope back in 1975.
Wow.
Rappelling from a helicopter. And it's funny because you've all seen me in one form or another. If you ever saw the old recruiting or some of the promotional stuff that was done way back when, and it's just because we were it was a helicopter rappelling operation, and the camera crew was there, and they were taking pictures, and they just liked that particular shot, or they cropped it and made it work. So that's one. Myself and Theodore Podwell III.
Wow.
who was one of the other officers. He was one of the officers who was dangling from a rope there at the time. That's just a sidebar. That was before I got into U6. At U6, to give everybody an overview, there are 3 basic missions there. Well, there are others, but the primaries are to train intel analysts, counterintelligence personnel, and interrogators. Now, everybody always hears the word interrogator, they get pretty ominous. But back in the day, it was a refined school, not the torture academy that you hear about with the idiots that we have in the system now. Totally different world, totally different type of philosophy. The failures that we have today are nothing like the men we used to have.
Okay.
As far as the system goes. And I can't emphasize that enough, because I saw it firsthand. We actually were part of the different classes, instructional. Everybody traded off on jobs. And so I trained as an intel analyst, came back out of U6, worked with 5th Army headquarters, also with divisional headquarters. And at that time, back in the early 80s, before anybody knew what Rex 84 was, we started to receive a series of briefings and classes. Actually, they weren't classes. They were actually indoctrinational processes for command and divisional personnel to prepare for detention camps.
Wow. And this is like...
And it wasn't a kind of sort of, it was this is what we're going to do, but they were testing the water to see how the military would respond.
Yes. And what was the response at the time?
It's interesting, the people that were approaching us, now the way this works is, for those people who aren't familiar with the military, you have what we call the G shops. G1, G2, G3, G4, you have different elements that are part of your operations. Everybody sends personnel to these staff and briefings that when they're brought in from outside. So everybody took their turn, and each of us in the intel shop that I was with, I worked as the intel analyst. I had one of the person who was a counterintelligence coordinator. I was also cross-trained as a counterintelligence coordinator, 96C. That was my secondary, one of my secondary MLSs. I had 2 others. But all the rest of our people, our counterintelligence field personnel, everybody had to take a turn going to these briefings because we had other things, we had other missions we had to perform.
Okay.
Well, we pieced together what they were doing because we got part of this. And the military people, basically what they said was, well, how do you feel about violating the Constitution? And it wasn't the civilians that stepped forward and said, no, guys. It was the military personnel who stepped forward and put their foot down and got flustered because of what they were hearing. And that's very important to remember. It was the people from the regime, from the at that time, the beginning of it was the the Carter regime, and then later it would be the beginning of the Reagan administration. But at this point, what I didn't know or didn't understand is completely now, is that by this time, this is after the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And George Bush was running Washington, not Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
So this was a Bush administration, and it makes sense because the people that we had that came to us were people who were from offices that normally would not be approaching us. And what they were looking for were people to manage detention facilities inside the United States, to operate interrogation centers inside the United States, to operate a number of different sorting sites. And what's funny is because on the one hand, we've been getting these piecemeal reports, and I also worked as an inspector, so I had to go out and go to different battalion and brigade headquarters, and I would inspect the armories, check security documents, ensure that physical security operations were in place. That was my particular niche of the inspection team. Well, I'm walking around with a guy, and this is, of course, middle of the day, and we're walking through the complex, and he starts talking about, well, have you applied for any of the new jobs?
And what were the new jobs?
Well, that's what I said. and at the time we were looking, you're always looking to, try and get a job that's a little more fixed and regular, and you don't have to worry about losing, right? Mm-hmm. So I just shut up and listened. I learned a long time ago, listen. And he starts, so, well, what kind of job? No, I haven't had a chance to. What have you seen that's available? And he goes, well, basically we went through interrogators. For the interrogation of men, women, and children. The sorting of prisoners, as in men, women, and children. And the detention facilities and operating those, and the support and coordination for those for men, women, and children.
Wow. This is on U.S. soil.
Well, he was talking to me for almost an hour. while we were walking before he realized. It was like a light bulb finally went on. He turned and he looked at me, and his expression was like, that beaker from from the Muppets.
Yes.
Whoa! He realized that I had given him nothing. I had no input, and I really didn't know what he was talking about.
Wow.
However, I did now know what he was talking about because he had pretty well mapped everything out for, what it was that they were recruiting for.
This
But
exactly.
it was very compartmentalized.
If
and
we can
this
give
is
it-
where, again, I came back, talked to Nancy about this. Of course, I kind of stewed on it for a bit because this is one of those things where this comes at you from right or left field at an angle, oblique, and it fit with all of the other stuff that we were experiencing in other parts of the command.
Mark, can I ask you something? This is, if you want to
Go
give
ahead.
a timeline, when was exactly, you think, about this meeting? This
80 to 83, but 80 to 81 is where the big first step, the first push began. By 1983, they were in planning, early 83, late 82, early 83, they were in extensive, already deep planning. MPPW commands were already selling themselves out, and some were denying, some were refusing to do, others were accepting. So there was a division that was going on inside the military at the time, which progressively we pieced together.
Mm-hmm.
The high point in this in 1982 is one of our guys, I won't mention his name. He came from the Navy, came over to us and worked for Army Intelligence. He had gone to one of the meetings and he came back, and whenever you went to one of these things, you're already pissed as it is when you're finished listening to these bureaucrats from Washington, because every time they kept pressing the same route. They come back to the same point, basically saying, well, you do want to help us to violate the Constitution, right? And they kept kind of like, it was that pregnant pause, like they're waiting to see who's going to, say something. Well, everybody learned to be sheep-faced, in other words, well, I'm just listening. And he came back and he sat there for about a good hour and a half, just kind of staring at the wall and the typewriter in front of him. And finally, while I was busy finishing up some other paperwork at my desk right there was a very small armored cubicle. We're behind like 3 feet of concrete, guys. And he goes, Mark, those characters upstairs couldn't care who the hell they worked for, whether they were foreign or not. They'd follow whatever order as long as they got paid for it.
Wow.
And it's like, this could not have been a good meeting, But what he was referring to were these characters from Washington who were throwing bigger cards on the table, talking about the idea of the detention camp operation, police state operations in the United States, the whole 9 yards. So we were seeing what we didn't know at the time. See, everything was compartmentalized. We didn't know the actual title for this, but this was Rex 84.
Yes, and also I would like to remind to the listeners, at the time there was no internet yet for civilians, at least like we have today.
No, this was all,
Okay.
You had to find people of like mind.
Yeah.
Seriously, yes.
I mean, this is very hard to understand how tough it was to put all these things together at the time where we didn't have the chance to communicate like we're doing now. So this is very important thing. Now, question is, probably is a rhetorical question, because I already see at that point I would start to have some, like you said, some bulbs in my head start to flashing. When did you wake up? When did you realize that the America that you were ready to serve and die for wasn't anymore the republic that our founding fathers created? I mean, when was...
Well, early on, we already knew we had problems when this started. By the beginning of 81, there were significant issues that were being raised because they were putting, the probes out. They wanted to see who they could trust and who they couldn't trust. Now, it's funny because, you see, I came into service in the 70s. And what most Americans don't know is that we came a breath away from a civil war in the early 1972 window to 73 window of activity. And the country was heavily divided. But what most people don't realize is that in reality, Nixon was actually the American commander. Most everybody that was pressing against Nixon were the internationalists who were trying to destroy the sovereignty of the country. And working with different people who had been in service back in the day, only a few years earlier, this subject kept coming up from different directions, where you'd be sitting around at night with a lot of people, you're relaxing for a bit, and then they get into what recent history had happened. And the argument is that, and I know this firsthand from, dealing with the bureaucracy, that the country had been divided up back in 72. The Marine Corps was going to go with, the presidency. elements of the army were going to go with the presidency. Other elements they counted on they could give them orders and they'd go along with the internationalists. And there was open talk about a battle for the east coast of the United States, that would be probably the initiator of a war inside the U.S.
Wow.
So that's back in the early 70s. By the 80s, only 10 years later, the characters that had tried to perpetrate or actually did perpetrate the actions to try and shift the country out in the middle 70s, well, George Herbert Walker Bush is one of those people.
Yes. This is exactly my point. Now I would like to say, unfortunately, I wish you were wrong, because I know that myself, I'm a newbie, okay? I just started this probably about 10 years ago, but even a little more. But the reality that people probably till now, they're still laughing at us. We're bringing evidence after evidence. We're bringing new pieces of legislation that now pretty much bring all on the open, like the Patriot Act or the National Defense Authorization Act. Or, people when used to make fun of you, and I know because I read articles that there are, a former FBI agent making fun of you, that you're completely, so focused on this new world order, like these things like it's part of some movies. And now I would like to play for the listeners, because that's what I'm trying to do here. I would like to believe that all this was a big bad dream, and Mark Koernke was some sort of a, movie character, and I can wake up in the morning and I'm back to the America that when I came here from Italy, I was hoping for. No. Guys, we need to wake up. The first way we can fix this problem, acknowledge the reality that this is not the illusion that you think. So, when people make fun of the New World Order, because we try to mention this concept, you want to call it global government or New World Order, this is real. Let's play 1 second from the mouth of these devils, little bit this, because maybe if me or Mark Koernke says New World Order, the next few minutes we're going to be pretty much labeled like a bunch of crazy people. Let's see now these leaders from the America or different countries. Let's listen 1 second.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
That's the vision.
There's a need for a new world order.
Scumbag number 2, Kissinger.
It has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
The affirmative task we have now
Scumbag number 3, Joe Biden.
To actually create a new world order.
A world in which there is the very real prospect
Back
of a
to
new
scumbag
world order.
number 1.
It's about the
Former
future
President Bush.
of Europe and a new world order.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
That was scumbag Bill Clinton. And there is so much more. I mean, this is just scratching the surface. Now, Mark, you know why I wanted to bring this up? Because people still believe that this is a bunch of conspiracy theories. I mean, like we're just making it up. What do you think about
that's what's fascinating about this is, again, the arrogance level where they're right in your face. They tell you that you didn't hear what you just heard.
Exactly.
And even as they're saying it, well, that guy's crazy for repeating what I just said. Think about it. What you just heard didn't just happen by all of those characters in one room in 1 minute or in a few hours of each other. You're talking about stretched out over a period of years, and those are just samplers of repeats of those comments in many forms by each of those individuals over decades.
Yes.
See, that's where you actually have to do the reverse. You have to laugh at anybody who is foolish enough to try and argue against.
Yes.
You have to look down upon them the way that they think they're going to reverse it on you. If you reverse it on them, it's like, well, how can you possibly, with the knowledge base available now, deny this? How could you? You have to be an idiot.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, I'm not putting down, but I am putting
it is. You
putting
know what
down the ones of the perpetrators that try to attack us.
You know what I believe?
sorry.
Part of people that are supposed to be among us, we are all going to face the same reality. And when they're still in denial, I start to understand this is part of humanity, because there is a part of humanity that want to face reality and, of course, committing themselves to try to solve these problems, okay? Sometimes also the reality can be really terrible, like this one, and you must do very serious decisions and commit yourself. Then there is the part that they try to hide behind the not even the ignorance, try to just the arrogance and to avoid to face the reality. Because the moment that people start to realize that this is a serious problem for us and for the next generation after us, then they need to start to act. And many people, unfortunately, they're afraid to act. They're afraid also to face reality. And that's why I think these globalists, they know society, they study psychology, they have people, computers now using models, and they understand that they can also put in our face, like, I don't know, terrible crimes, and will still people, part of the population, would not believe. Mark, did you ever watch a TV series that it was when it happened, when it was broadcast? I was even in America. I was still in Italy. I was a young man in Italy. Probably I was a child there. It's called America with a K, and it was a TV series that it shocked me when I was able to find a copy that is very hard to find, and it was with Robert Urich and Chris Christopherson. Did you remember that?
And it was only shown once on national television, which is unheard of with a miniseries because they make their money on the reruns.
Exactly.
And it was shown one time, and it was locked away. And there's only two ways that you can see that miniseries. One is if back during the day, some people ran their VHS recorders and recorded the whole program, including the ads. The other version, where it came from, is a producer died back in the 90s, in the late 90s. He actually had the one working copy of America with a K in his library because they didn't burn everything.
Jesus.
And what happened is a woman bought the collection, and then she was listening to one of my programs in the 90s and announced to everybody, oh, I have a copy of it. I actually can sell copies of it because I have the copy of it.
Wow.
And so the reason, the one person, this is a fluke, one person dying who was a producer for the big studios in Hollywood. He had a lot of other videos too that nobody's seen for years, or movies that had been taken out of circulation because they weren't in line with the agenda. And America, the miniseries, the way you see it on YouTube now, the copies that you see, most of those are from the master copy that this woman had, where she made VHS copies for people back in the 90s.
Yes, 1987, I was able to pay decent money for an old burned DVD. I think I paid $60. I mean, and I was happy. Even I didn't want to pay that money, but I really realized that was a message. Somebody was trying to send a message. I don't know, because maybe sometimes they just have some sort of, I don't know, their little crazy mind. They try to tell us things that are going to happen to us or they're going to do to us. But that was the most prophetic, realistic piece of entertainment that is not entertainment at all. I wish every American can find a way to watch this this TV series, because it is like almost a blueprint of what's happening right now. And it gave me chills. It gave me depression sometimes, but I forced myself to watch it all. And after that, I started to get a motivation more than ever to try to do everything I can to wake up my fellow American. I don't care if it's next door, in my next neighbor, or over the internet, over the phone. We are all in danger, and we must prepare, because this is exactly the point of the show. First of all, we must acknowledge there is a problem. Then we try to find a way how we can try to fix this problem, and there are different ways. And then we must have a B plan, because sometimes not everything goes the way we wish, and we must be prepared. And, we can all still believe that you can vote, you can do whatever you want. We know very well. Look what happened just a few days ago with Bonner, and the Congress sold out. If you believe that you're still a Republican and you have some sort of a difference, you must really get some medication for your brain. I mean, you must realize that this is completely gone. The system is corrupted. They control both parties, and the illusion is pretty much like this sort of a crazy game to keep us separated. It's time to wake up, unite, even with our little differences sometimes. I don't care if you're left or right, center. We are all going to be slaves. That's the reality. Mark, now, after you did your experience in the army, what happened to you? I mean, how did you continue your life?
Well, there's a couple of things that I did. Number one, I didn't leave the military completely. But in fact, at the time, we continued to work quietly behind the scenes, and I can talk about it now.
Okay.
But a lot of the information about Rex 84 was by people like myself who stayed anonymous. this is something where even the other parties, I won't mention by name, but they're individuals who saw what was going on. And there was yet another division going on inside the military, a subdivision where people were making a decision. You're either going to be with them or you're going to be against them.
Wow.
And this happened progressively over the 80s, through the 80s. The Bush administration did not just take place when Bush finally became president. After the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan by whoever, I believe it was George Bush who actually did it, to be quite honest, because everybody involved were family friends.
Yes.
Everybody, including the assassin. The attempted assassin, Mr. Hinckley, is the son of a business partner of George Herbert Walker Bush's. So it didn't succeed. Reagan stayed in name in power, but the people who worked around him were driven out. The people who were pro-Reagan were driven out. The people who were CIA Bush were moved in. So by the beginning of the second term of Ronald Reagan, it was pretty much a Bush administration with regard to who was making the decisions in the different elements of the government.
And
at that point in time, what we had to do is try to figure out how could we build more people up. Well, we created different mechanisms inside the machine and built them up ourselves. And so I helped to create OPFOR Training Command, which we built from scratch. And we trained Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, active, reserve, National Guard. And in the process, we were able to start to build up a militia component.
Now,
quite extensive.
When you say the
component.
word militia, I already talked about this concept many times. Please open your brain, listeners. Now you're driving maybe it's the first time you're going through this show. Maybe you think we're a bunch of crazy. Remember one word. Militia was exactly the foundation of this country. If we're here today as America, whatever it's left of this republic, because people, the regular American, not the professionals, the militia was probably the main defense and the blood that created this country and what used to be our freedom. I say used to be because it's pretty much gone. So it's not a bad word.
Virtually the whole military. I mean, we didn't have a regular military before 1775.
Exactly.
And even after 1775, guys, what, did we grow regular soldiers in a potato patch somewhere? No, we didn't.
No.
They were all militiamen. And it's just that we eventually, well, before the Republic, before the Articles of Confederation, before the Declaration of Independence, there was the militia.
So exactly. And I try to ask to the listeners that they are new to this concept, when we say militia, means regular people. And in some states, for example, like the state of Arizona, if you read the Constitution, we are pretty much that every man from 18, starting from 18 to 45, automatically is into the militia, okay? And there is the organized militia and the unorganized militia. So it is not a bad word, but they try to make you believe that, especially in the 90s, all the things that happen, they try to completely destroy the sense of creating unity and awakening and also preparation. Because the militia idea, it is not to have an army ready to be deployed. It is a body of men and women with a plan and preparation ready to defend themselves in their own communities against different type of threats. Doesn't need to be just the aliens coming down from Mars. Could be tomorrow, could be also a natural disaster, could be civil unrest. But of course, let's not forget, could be more important, a tyrannical government. And the example that I think we can still have a hope to succeed, because I'm trying to really to figure it out what we can do now. I believe that we pretty much at the last few minutes of time that we have left to prepare. I don't believe anymore that Washington can do anything. It's gone. Or because they are bought out, or they are corrupted, or they've been blackmailed. Something's going on that is completely out of control there. There is no hope in Washington, in my opinion. And
totally...
Go ahead,
it's totally
Mark.
contrary to anything that has to do with being an American now.
Exactly.
In fact, they're proud and arrogant of the fact that they are promoting an international agenda, not an American agenda.
Exactly. And then let's look at facts, okay? Where people can say, oh, but this is still the America. You still have freedom. First of all, wake up. No, I say always, we can have different opinions on different type of socioeconomics. One thing we should all pretty much understand, have in common. The National Defense Authorization Act is bringing us back to before pre-Magna Carta. Now, this country, what used to be America with a C, it became America with a K. There is no more due process. I think even in China, they give you a phony process, a phony trial, and then they shoot you in the head or the back, of course. But now, with the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act, of course, this isn't started just with Obama. But Obama really finalized it and put it on steroids. For the first time in this country, before we had the king, but even with the king, we still had the Magna Carta. We are right now at the point that the government can design any one of us, American people, potential terrorists. You don't even need to be a declared terrorist. You don't need to be tried and found guilty. Just suspected terrorist. Put it down in writing, please. Suspected terrorist, no judge, no jury, no trial, no due process, no lawyer, nothing. And you can be detained indefinitely. If this doesn't give you chills on your back, and now this is the law of the land. Even for me, it's just a piece of paper, because the law of the land against the Constitution is null and void in my book. But still, in their mind, is the law of the land. And many other zombies out there, especially the new generation of law enforcement, we will follow the law of the land if asked. So this is here right now in America. Now, when we look at this, look what we have right now in the last 6 years. But Bush was anything different. He was just doing it, and people didn't notice because they didn't want to notice. Now Obama, people finally waking up a little bit. We are living completely in a new, like almost the time of the Caligula. We have the Senate. It is pretty much just there for the show. And the emperor, now we have an emperor. Congress doesn't exist anymore. So now this is the reality. Now, what's next, Mark? What do you think? Because, you have your opinion, you have your experience, you got facts, and you start to have some judgment. You've been doing this a long time ago. What do you think? Where we are right now?
Well, the interesting thing about it is that the bad guys definitely have been trying in what is a hard press for the last 3 years to accomplish one thing: disarm the American people.
Mm-hmm.
In 2013, we saw a massive wave attack on a broad front, and it was all just like the Obamacare thing. It was, don't read it, don't think about it. We're just going to shove it down everybody's throats, and everybody will accept it, and then they're going to come out and get the guns, and you're not going to be allowed to have this, and you won't be allowed to have that. Well, remember that they tried to tell us before that, go to sleep, and we're not after your guns, we're not doing this. And now, even after they've done this, they now are trying to claim they never did it, which is an example of, again, the logic of the bunny in the survival course. You pet the bunny's head, then you grab him by the neck, and you flip his body over, and you break his neck.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're thinking they're going to do. They're going to catch us all off guard. And the thing is, a big chunk of America is pretty cognizant. A lot of people, even listening right now, won't necessarily talk to a lot of other people, but you're not alone. They know, or should know, they're not alone. That's where the most common mistake is, because of listening to the controlled media. There is a monster chunk of people that just stopped this from happening because they said, "Go ahead and do it."
Yeah, no, I believe
and that's
that.
that's what we have left. They have to try and disarm, because then the rest of what basically is 1922-23 communist Russia all over again, the Red Terror.
Yes.
Then they could do what they wish.
Exactly, and this is the point. Reading Sun Tzu, The Art of War, you realize that. The enemy, the big general, the best general, the optimus battle, there is the best victory, is when they put you in a situation that you have no hope to win. It's like a chessmate. So in my opinion, what they're trying to do now, they try to gain more and more and more advantage. More and more, probably, if they're smart enough, in my opinion, what they should do is just wait another generation, because now with Common Core and all this re-education system that they have in the public school, we're going to have a new generation of zombies pretty much, and but I don't know. I think they have deadline. I think things are pressuring very much, and I see things that are happening. For example, now this Agenda 21, this confiscation of millions of acres of public land, like, for example, at the Bundys last April, I was there, and I realized one thing. What you're saying is exactly right. The moment that they see that the American people stop being brainwashed, lazy, and somehow, I don't know, just apathetic, and they get together, even just standing in front of their rifles. Because what we did then at that day, April the 13th, we were just standing and say, shoot us, go ahead. Guess what?
Yeah, start it and see what happens. And that's what their demeanor changed completely, didn't it?
Exactly. And they see, wow, they give a damn. They couldn't believe it. And this time, it wasn't just, oh, this is not my problem. It's happening in Nevada. Oh, this is not my problem. I don't eat cows. I don't care. I live in Arizona. I probably don't even like cows. I went there. And I hope more thousands and millions of people, we are ready to help each other. Because this is happening. They're testing us out. And the best way, in my opinion, to avoid violence is to show that we mean business. Otherwise, we're going to be pretty much taken in the middle of the night. Now, Mark, you have a radio show that I love, by the way. Let's talk a little bit about your radio show and where people can listen to it.
Well, boy. Well, we're doing all kinds of radio. I do 6 hours a day. I do 3 in the morning on what is www.themicroeffect.com from 8 in the morning until 11 a.m. Eastern time. And that's on from Monday through Friday. And that's on themicroeffect.com, www.themicroeffect.com. We cover all the subjects that you're talking about here and a whole lot more, everything from good governance, the courts, militia organization and operations, logistical support, tactical concepts, politics, and we have fun because it's in the morning, so it's kind of like a drive time thing. And hopefully we keep you awake and keep you from falling asleep behind the wheel while you're headed to work.
You know,
and educate. The important thing, like you said, is educate. Give people knowledge. Show them where to go to find more, and crack open their brains. Get them to think for themselves. That's really what we're trying to do with the program in general.
Exactly. And, you know, when you got some topics, you know, like you have a lot of topics about tactics and also, you know, down to ammunitions and things. This is my best hour. I mean, I really relax. Sometimes I just replay the rebroadcast or the download. I download the show, and there is one of the most beautiful moments of my day at night. I listen to your show while I clean my rifle, and I smoke a cigar. It's the most relaxing time of the day. I know people think it's crazy, but I really like it, and I have a lot of good memories the last few years listening to you while I'm cleaning my rifles. Now, you know, you went through a lot. You know, you had a chance to listen and witness all this preparation against the American people, and also you went through some tough times. You know, I know you spent 8 years in jail. I read a little bit about you, and not just because come out of a trial or of a judge. I know very well how can be all this manipulated. I read your story, but all I know that you went out. You spent the awful time in jail. Tell us briefly exactly your version of the story, please.
Well, what happened, it's quite extensive, but we can do it simply this way.
Yes.
The feds, in conjunction with foreign parties, actually fabricated a bank robbery in town.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had absolutely nothing to do with it. We weren't a participant in it. In fact, it was timed so that as we were driving through town, we're in a small dot in the map, Dexter, Michigan. Anybody can find it. You can even do it a Google map thing and drive through town and see where I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But in the middle of town, this took place. The character walked out or robbed the bank. We drove by, and everything was plugged in to focus on us and attack, and actually to try and I believe they planned on killing us on the expressway. That pretty well has come out of the wash from county deputies that passed on information, etc. But basically what they did is attacked us. Rather than sitting in the kill zone, eventually we actually moved down the road, got to a safer location. They beat me down, of course, but by that time I'd gotten my sons out of the car by getting away from them because I think the plan was to do more damage, obviously. Went through the whole process where they had me, tried, of course, went through the court system. It was pretty well kangaroo, and ended up with, of course, a number of different charges. Not all of them was I found guilty of, and it had nothing to do with the bank robbery, by the way. It simply had to do with absconding with myself. I absconded with myself because I was, because I was, not willing to just let them roll over us and, execute us at a particular point.
Yeah, and this is exactly the point because, it's funny because there is an article out there. What you're saying is amazing. They could never even connect you to this robbery.
No, as a matter of fact,
they admitted
to give everybody just a couple of things I could play them. I've actually got them on tape.
Yeah.
The 911 tape, they were listening on the dispatch. We have the dispatch tape. 911, yeah, this is Ann Arbor. This is Great Lakes Federal Savings, downtown Dexter. Yes, we just been robbed. Oh, is he still there? No. Where did he go? Well, he stepped outside, walked across the street, and went over to the sheriff's office.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And she goes, what, repeat that? He goes,
Yeah.
he just walked outside of the bank, went across the street, and over to the sheriff's office.
Yeah. They admitted it, by the way. This is article that I found out online. It's amazing, how much even they have to admit this stuff. This is retired FBI agent, my encounters with infamous militia figure Mark from Michigan, okay? And Craig Stayskull, whatever is his name. And even him, the truth is the truth. They never could they had to admit that you had nothing to do with this robbery. They completely put you in a state of fear, because I tell you, if I see cars or police chasing me and I don't even know why, I believe that they probably want to kill me, okay? And
well, initially when we got the dispatch back, the feeling was that they were putting us in a particular place on the road, actually, and I had two of my sons with me.
Wow.
So the idea is now, and we've seen enough of this. You got to remember, I've been doing decades of work either from within the system, and I also worked in broadcasting. Guys, I've covered all of the different types of assassinations, attempts on people's lives, fabrication of BS over and over again.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like a witness to one event. I've virtually covered, and we've either helped people with situations thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the reason for this, desperately trying to plug something in. The character who actually did the bank robbery was living in a safe house. We don't know if it was a foreign safe house or a government safe house in a closed community in the middle of the state of Michigan. No information on the tax property was allowed, on who's paying the taxes or who owns the property was allowed, and anybody who's in real estate knows that that's public information. Whenever we find something like that, it's typically a safe house or a government-run complex, a facility paid for by the Fed or by by somebody else.
Yeah.
But this person, eventually they went through the motion with him. He was out in less than, in and out in less than 2 years. In other words, he was told to do whatever he was supposed to do, did it, and they popped him right back out. That's typical for an informant.
Yeah.
If he even spent the time in prison.
Yeah, maybe they're having a break,
With my charges, it was supposed to be, well, you'll be out on parole in 2 years.
Yeah.
I had a perfect record. I had no arrest record. I have no background, by the way. In fact, they've even had, this is interesting because I've pointed this out on the air. For everybody else, pay attention. They're fabricating and putting stuff into people's files through the prosecutor's office all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I had a TS SBI clearance with the military. Okay, that's top secret special background investigation, and an SBI cost about, at the time when I went in, about $80,000, which is big money back in the day.
Yeah.
Still a good chunk of change today to do a background check, because they do the investigation, they send the agents out, they talk to your family members and neighbors and cats and dogs and everybody they can.
Wow.
The prosecutor's office fabricated information, even creating a juvenile file in my record that doesn't exist, that never existed. See, the mistake they made is this. I also keep copies of everything as it was generated over the years. So I have the copies of everything and multiple copies, because I was taught by the old boys in the military, always duplicate everything you got.
Yeah.
So I have all of the original research files and all the copies of all of my clearance files. And I can show you the difference between what they tried to fabricate and insert into the national NCIC records, which is the computer background system we have. And it's totally contrary to all my actual records. Well, this is an example where they were trying to puff stuff up. I had no background, perfect record, no conflict in the system. I had to protect myself, but that's never usually put on record.
Yeah.
And I still actually maxed out.
Yeah.
No good time, no parole, maxed out for a little over 7 years.
Wow. And this is the point, because I bring to the show people that, first of all, I'm glad that we're talking about this, because, first of all, I want to show you that what happened to Mark can happen tomorrow, today, to any one of us. If you think just because he's coming out from a court system, wake up. Okay? I mean, they can control everything. They can set up every one of us. And Mark probably is lucky that he made it alive. That's my point. And this is my opinion, of course. I took the time to research, to try to do some sort of just internet investigation, and there is so much that said pretty much show that this was, in my opinion, as a setup. That's what it was. And you're really lucky. I think maybe it was, I don't know, not in their plans, not everything worked out good for them. You're supposed to be gone that day. You were.
I wasn't probably supposed to. In fact, let's put it this way. Inside the system, just to give you an idea, people all through the system there are decent people everywhere. Category 11 political prisoner is what I was listed as. How do I know? Well, a certain person sitting across the table from me that worked in the system goes, she says, "Would you sit down for a minute?" And I sat down, and the person turned the computer screen around, which she's not supposed to do, and she goes, "Can you tell me what that is?" And it said Category 11 prisoner, and it's Category 11 prisoner, contact this number, and this number.
Wow.
Now, what's funny is I just had the write-up from the law library that I had been doing the research on. It came back. I said, "Just sit right here and don't move." Went back, picked all my information up, sat back down at the table, and I said, "Read what it says right here. Category 11 political prisoner."
Yeah, yeah.
"What does it say on your screen right there on that entry?" And she looks at it, and it says, Category 11 prisoner, reference this telephone number. In other words, call this number. If you want to be told what to do, how to screw me, or what to do to me, call this number.
Mark.
So she said, "Really?" She goes, "Well, let me show you something. I was curious about that." And she said, "Watch this." And she hit the cursor, and she deleted all of that from the file from that day forward, so that anybody else that looked at that on the computer wouldn't find that. Now, that's one of the reasons I can say now, we'll talk about it because it's been long enough, that person is safe and secure and out of the system. But that person altered what was in the computer that anybody else would have pulled up to make brownie points.
Yeah. No,
So there's people through the system that all feel the same way that we all do here. I would point out that there's a kind of a gap. We jumped ahead, and we have to because we only have so much time here. But when I did American Peril,
Yes.
that was done in 1993. And before all of this other stuff, which, again, if you look my name up, you'll find it's Mark, last name Koernke. If you do a search, you'll see all kinds of propaganda, guys. But I challenge you first to watch American Peril, which you can find on YouTube.
Yes.
Watch it, and then you'll understand why all that other propaganda was generated the way that it was.
Yes, Mark. That's why I say what you did before without any type of access. Now it's easy, with the internet, if you have an open mind, you can find all this stuff. At the time was amazing.
Yes.
Like Bill Cooper, like your job, for me was one of the, I always remember you like one of the people who was trying to warn what was coming. And now it's here. Mark, what do you think is going to happen? I'm not trying to play a psychic here or any type of magic powers, but you got experience. You look at facts, what's going on right now, the economy, Obama, all these new just pieces of legislations. The small arms treaty that even is not ratified by Senate is still in their book. It's happening. What do you think is going to happen in 2015?
Well, 2015 is going to be the year of battle, I think, in that the bad guys, like you said earlier, you're right on the money. It's like they're on a schedule they have to keep.
Yeah.
And they're frustrated. I believe personally, playing the race card, let's just think about this. They could have done this earlier on in Bummer's administration, right?
Yeah.
Why not do this in the second year? Why not do it in the third year? But you'll notice that the whole rabid race card was played the end of this last year. That, to me, is a desperation act, which means that the bad guys are trying to get something going so that they can plug the police state in, which, by the way, the latest thing about, get behind the cops. No, I'm behind peace officers. I'm not going to be behind the cops because, the state of Connecticut, all their anti-gun stuff is still in place.
Yeah.
New York, all of their anti-gun stuff is still in place. In Washington State, they just made it illegal for anybody to hand a gun to somebody else without it being a high crime.
Yes.
You can't hand a gun to your wife in the kitchen without being all of a sudden a high criminal.
Wow.
Well, with that being the case, why did they do that? What was the agenda? The agenda is to create conflict and to try and get the gun grab going. So are you going to get behind the police? When the police, supposedly it's because of those black evil, the black rioters and this and that and the other. Well, the black rioters are bought and paid for by the same Fed who runs the ATF and Homeland Security and everything else. So they're trying to herd you with the classic A and B program or the Hegelian dialectic, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, create the problem, demonstrate the problem, and come up with a solution people otherwise wouldn't accept. Because once they get you all so that you're going to go rah-rah behind the police, okay, so the same police you're getting behind then are told, go get the guns in Connecticut.
Yes.
Are you going to be behind the police?
Yeah, you're right.
Or they say, go get the guns in New York and beat down every door. We got to support the police because they're going after the gun owners.
Yeah, no, this
You
is...
see how that's the kind of propaganda they play, and it's the kind of garbage we need to be prepared for. So what we need to understand is we're a third team. And the attack on the weapons is critical to the attack on the rest of our property and the country.
Mark,
That's what it comes down to.
you know, one thing today was just the introduction. I wanted just to show to the listeners who you are as an American, as a human being, and pretty much the job that you did. And that's why I say, people, you know, we can talk for hours here. What you gotta do, you gotta go on YouTube and find Mark's material. Find American Peril, please, and watch this, and then we can talk. And then I would like, you know, there is so much to cover. One thing I really would like to do after we understand what's going on here, I like the you experience to start to talk about, and it's not going to happen today, unfortunately, at the end of the hour. What is about the militia? How can the average Joe, the average Jane, American people, and even people that they're here from another country, but they love this country, and they're even in the process to become Americans, okay? We don't need to be completely full-blood. We want to come here, and we believe in the principles. We want to be ready to defend this republic. And I would like to talk with you next time. I pray that you can be back on the show with me, and we can talk probably just about how to prepare for what's coming. Can you promise?
Absolutely.
Would you like to
Whenever
be
you
with
need
me,
sir?
I really appreciate you. Listen, I dedicate a song for you right now that is going to be, you already watched it probably. It's called Come and Take It. I wrote that song, and it's in your honor and all the fellow Americans that they believe that when the time comes, they will not give up and they will not surrender. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Come and take it. 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 You're gonna like it. You're gonna feel like it's paradise. Come and take it. You're gonna get it. You're gonna taste it. One between your eyes. Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it. No more false illusions. Enough of your phony hope. You've stolen our son's future. Your empty words are like dope. If you want our guns, you want our souls. If you want our lives, here we stand in line. Come and take it. You're gonna like it. You're gonna feel like it's paradise. Come and take it. You're gonna get it. You're gonna taste it. One between your eyes. Come and take it. Come and take it. Come and take it.